The galaxy was falling apart for thousands of years. The Galactic Council had kept peace across the stars. Dozens of alien races worked together, shared knowledge, and built a shining civilization. But all of that was now collapsing one system at a time. The enemy was not an army of warships or angry invaders. It was something worse. It was the Drexari swarm. No one knew where they came from. The first sightings were in the dark regions near the edge of known space. Ships and stations began disappearing. Messages were cut off mid-transmission. Entire planets went silent. At first, the Council thought it was a strange natural disaster. Then came the footage flickers of black, insect-like machines moving in perfect harmony. They didn't destroy things with fire. They simply absorbed everything: metal, energy, even memories stored in data banks. Entire cities were gone without a single explosion. Now, the swarm had reached the core worlds. In the floating sky city of Kale-Thru Prime, the last meeting of the Galactic Council had begun. The chamber was silent. Even the usually loud and proud Varnati diplomats said nothing. There was no need to argue anymore. Everyone knew what was coming. Councillor Celia Yura of the Velnari people stood up. Her long silver robes shimmered in the soft light of the chamber, but her face showed no pride today. "We have lost 27 worlds in the last cycle," she said quietly. "Our defenses fall before they are even tested. The swarm adapts too fast. We cannot outfight it. We cannot outthink it. There is no more time." Many nodded. Some lowered their heads. One of the chairs, the one that once belonged to the proud defenders of the Corn Empire, was empty. Now, their homeworld had been taken 3 days ago. A deep voice echoed through the hall. It came from High Speaker Grilvok, a large reptilian being from the planet Shar. "Then let us do the only thing we can. We surrender. We evacuate. We save what little we can." No one shouted in anger. No one protested. There were no better ideas left. Grilvok turned to the Council's ancient beacon, a golden device placed in the center of the hall. It had not been used in centuries. Its purpose was to send an emergency message across the entire galaxy, including sectors where no known civilization lived anymore. He activated it by the name of the Galactic Council. He said, "We send this final call to all corners of the stars. We ask not for soldiers, but for kindness. If anyone hears this, remember us. Remember what we built." The beacon pulsed once, twice, then a soft chime. The message had been sent. Councillor Yura sighed. "No one will hear it. We're alone out here." They didn't know they were wrong. Far away from the center of the galaxy, beyond even the last explored sector, something stirred. On a small, silent moon orbiting a red star, a hidden array of satellites blinked awake. The emergency signal had reached it. A few moments later, deep within a mountain, a voice said, "Signal received. Source, Galactic Council. Status, critical." The mountain was not empty. It was part of a hidden base, one that hadn't been active for 300 years. Inside, massive screens lit up. Engines began to warm. Ships rose from underground hangars. Men and women in uniforms, long in cryosleep, opened their eyes and stood tall. They were humans. Humanity had once been part of the Galactic Council. Long ago, they had joined with curiosity and fire in their hearts. But then, a terrible war with rogue artificial minds nearly wiped them out. After that, they vanished silent, forgotten, even thought extinct. But they were not gone. They had gone dark. They had rebuilt. They had prepared. And now, someone had called for help. Back at Kale-Thru Prime, the Council had just begun final evacuation plans when alarms rang across the station. Councilors jumped from their seats. "What now?" one of them cried. The station's AI spoke calmly. "Incoming warp signatures. Unknown configuration. Mass, heavy class fleet. Origin, uncharted." The chamber screens lit up. Dozens of massive ships appeared in space outside the station. Sleek, dark gray hulls. Blue lights pulsing across sharp armor. Each ship carried a single mark, a blue Earth surrounded by stars. "Is that?" Councillor Yura whispered. Then a voice filled the room. It was calm, confident. "This is Admiral Celeste Rao of the Terran Defense Armada. We received your message. The council chamber went still. Admiral Rao's voice continued. Do not evacuate. Do not surrender. Prepare to fight. The swarm ends here. And just like that, the galaxy dared to hope again. The air inside the council chamber felt heavy. No one moved. No one spoke. All eyes were on the large screens showing the strange new fleet. Dozens of human warships hung in space above Kale 3 Prime. Each one was large, silent, and shaped like a dark blade. Blue engine lights glowed softly at the back. Their hulls were marked with a silver and blue symbol Earth surrounded by 12 stars. Are those really humans? Asked Counselor Yura, her voice soft with disbelief. They were erased from our records centuries ago, muttered High Speaker Grovak. We thought they were extinct, but the voice from the lead ship continued, calm, clear. We are the Terran Defense Armada. We received your distress signal. We are here to assist. Assist? No one had assisted the galaxy in decades. The Council hurried to open a communication line. A tall, confident woman appeared on the central display. Her uniform was sharp and dark gray, and her eyes showed no fear. I'm Admiral Celeste Rao, she said, Fleet Commander of Earth's Outer Reach Division. We have come to stop the Drexari swarm. Grovak stepped forward. Admiral, we are honored, but you may not understand the danger. The swarm is unlike any enemy we've seen. They cannot be reasoned with. They do not stop. Rao didn't flinch. We understand. We've dealt with worse. The council members looked at each other in shock. Worse? What could be worse than the swarm? Counselor Yura spoke next. Forgive me, Admiral, but how did humanity survive? The records show you were nearly destroyed during the War of the Machines. Admiral Rao nodded slowly. That is true. We suffered greatly. But instead of asking for help, we went quiet. We hid, rebuilt, and evolved. We studied enemies like the ones you now face. And we made sure we'd never be caught unprepared again. The humans had not vanished. They had been preparing for this very moment outside the station. Smaller human ships detached from the main fleet and began scanning Cal 3 Prime. They didn't ask for permission, they just got to work, within hours. They had upgraded defense turrets, repaired energy, shields, and stabilized power cores. Their engineers moved fast, using tools and machines no other race had seen before. They even brought AI-assisted small floating drones that spoke in gentle voices, offering help to civilians and diplomats alike. A young alien child, afraid and hiding in the corridors, looked up as a soft white drone floated near him. Hello. It said kindly, Are you hurt? Would you like to find your family? The child nodded, and the drone guided him away, back in the chamber. The council watched in silence as Admiral Rao outlined her plan. We're deploying Project Dawnbreaker, she explained. It's a signal that disrupts the swarm's hive mind. We believe they rely on long-range neural frequencies to stay connected. We can block that. Counselor Yura blinked. You can break their communication. We can jam it, Rao replied. That's step 1. Step 2. We fight smart, not with brute force, but with precision. We'll hit their control nodes and cut them off system by system. And step 3. Ask GRAL-VOK. The Admiral gave a small smile. Step 3 is when they run. Later that day, the first test began. Human engineers placed strange black towers across the station's outer rings. When activated, they hummed softly, sending pulses through subspace across the nearby sectors. Drexari activity suddenly dropped. Reports came in, swarm ships slowing down, turning in circles, even crashing into asteroids. The jam was working. Cheers broke out in the chamber for the first time in months. There was progress, but the humans weren't celebrating. They were already preparing the next step of counterstrike. Target, Varnix Reach, Rao announced at the war table. It was once a stronghold of the Koran people. We will retake it. Counselor Yura looked nervous. That place is deep in swarm territory. They will fight hard to hold it. That's why we're going in fast, Rao replied. We'll use stealth units, electromagnetic shields, and localized jammers. We don't need to destroy everything, we just need to disable the core. Several council members volunteered to help. Engineers, medics, even soldiers who had lost their homes. They all wanted to stand beside the humans for the first time. The galaxy wasn't just surviving, it was standing up. As the human fleet moved into position, people across the galaxy began to watch. The message was spreading. The humans were back, and they were not afraid. Ships from smaller civilizations began moving towards safe zones. Guided by Terran drones, refugees were transported to protected planets. For the first time, the stars didn't seem so dark. In the heart of the Terran command ship, Admiral Rao looked at a map of the galaxy. So many red zones, so much fear. But now there was something else. A small spark hope. She tapped the screen and whispered, "Let's light the fire." The stars shimmered quietly, as if holding their breath, across the galaxy. Species who had once given up now turned their eyes to the skies with wonder. The human fleet had not just arrived, they had moved fast, acted boldly, and given others something they had forgotten: hope. But it wasn't just the ships or the weapons that surprised the galaxy. It was the way humanity thought, acted, and believed. This was humanity's doctrine, a way of life born from hardship, failure, and rebuilding. Inside the command center of the Terran flagship TNS Horizon, Admiral Celeste Rao stood before her. "Officers, we don't just fight with strength," she said. "We fight with purpose." Around her, holograms showed systems under Drexari control, cities swallowed in silence, and ships still missing. But now, there were green lights to newly protected zones, evac routes, and growing resistance movements. One officer raised his hand. "Ma'am, the Council still expects a long retreat. They think we'll lose ground again." Rao shook her head. "That's not what we do. Humans don't run. We hold." Human engineers continued working across Kelthru Prime and other safe worlds. But their work wasn't just repairs, it was transformation. They didn't rebuild defenses the old way. They brought adaptive shielding, self-healing walls, and silent alert systems that even children could understand. In one colony, a young boy accidentally tripped a sensor. Instead of loud alarms, a soft voice spoke. "It's okay, you're safe. Remember, you are part of the team now." Humans were not building fortresses. They were building communities that could protect themselves. Alien scientists were amazed by Terran machines. Unlike most galactic tech, which followed clean logic and predictable design, human systems were full of strange combinations: old metals with new circuits, recycled parts with cutting-edge software. "Why use so many layers?" a Varnadi researcher asked a Terran technician. The human smiled. "Because if one fails, another survives. We design with failure in mind." This was humanity's greatest strength: resilience. They had lived through disaster. They had made mistakes. But instead of giving up, they learned, adapted, and kept moving forward. In the council chamber, a new discussion had begun. For the first time in months, representatives were not planning evacuations, they were planning alliances. "We want to fight beside the humans," said a soft-spoken Faleri diplomat. "Not just for our worlds, but for something bigger." Counselor Yura looked around the room. Heads were nodding. Even the quietest voices were speaking. "Again, it's strange," she said, "how quickly things can change. One fleet, one voice, and now we remember who we were." She looked out the window at the Terran ships shining in orbit. "Or maybe we're becoming something new." At the edge of a dark system once lost to the swarm, Project Dawnbreaker reached full power. The signal pulsed across space, sending waves that disrupted the Drexari's hive mind connection. For the first time, the swarm paused. They did not know fear, but they knew confusion. Swarm units began to slow down, lose contact, and scatter. Some even turned on each other without direction. Admiral Rao watched it all from her command seat. "They're not used to thinking for themselves," she said. "Let's give them something to think about." Preparations for the counterattack on Varnix Reach moved quickly. This old fortress moon, once home to the proud Quarren people, had been under swarm control for nearly a year. Now, humanity planned to take it back. But this was not going to be a full-scale war. It would be a message. The Terrans would use a small task force, elite troops with advanced stealth armor, joined by volunteers from the alien species who had lost their homes. One of them was Sariakel, a former Corn pilot. She stood with the human team, wearing light armor marked with both the Corn crest and the Terran emblem. "I thought my people were gone forever," she said softly. Admiral Rao placed a hand on her shoulder. "They're not gone, Saria. They're waiting for a reason to return." The strike team launched from the horizon in silence. Their ship, cloaked and shielded, slipped through the darkness like a shadow. Inside, team members checked weapons not for destruction, but for precision. Human non-lethal tech was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Pulse rifles that disrupted circuits, foam rounds that froze machinery, and neural dampeners that quieted swarm drones instead of breaking them. The goal was not revenge. It was to disable and understand. The team landed on Varnix Reach within an hour. The swarm sensed them, but too late. They moved quickly, placing jammers and uploading anti-swarm code into the main node. Saria found the old Corn symbol still etched into a control room wall. She wiped off the dust and smiled. "We're home," she whispered. Back on Kale through Prime, the council received the message: Varnix Reach is free. The chamber erupted in cheers. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy had pushed back the darkness. On the bridge of the TNS horizon, Admiral Rao stared at the map again. One red zone was now green, but there were many more to go. "We're not done," she said. "But now they know we're not alone anymore." The silence of space was broken by the cheers of a galaxy waking up. The news had spread faster than any message ever before. Varnix Reach was free. The once lost fortress moon, a symbol of despair, now shone like a beacon of hope across countless worlds. Eyes turned to the stars with new belief. The Drexari swarm was not unstoppable. The darkness could be pushed back, and it all began with humanity on board the TNS horizon. Admiral Celeste Rao stood quietly, watching the latest reports coming. Her voice was calm but firm as she addressed her officers. "The swarm's hold is breaking," she said, "but this is only the beginning. We must keep the fire burning." The officers nodded, their faces showing determination. The victory at Varnix was not just a win, it was a spark that could ignite the entire galaxy. Far from the flagship, the human fleet moved like a silent wave. Smaller task forces worked alongside alien ships, many of which had never been part of a true battle before. One of these ships was piloted by Sariakel, the former Corn pilot who had helped liberate Varnix. She guided her fighter carefully through the asteroid field near the Drexari's new outpost. "Keep your focus," came the voice of the human pilot next to her, Lieutenant Yolan Reed. "They're nervous," Saria smiled. "So are we. But we don't show it." The liberation of Varnix inspired others to rise. On planets deep in the Outer Rim, resistance groups began to organize. They were made of many species: humans, Varnati, Corn, Thaleri, and more. Each group had stories of loss and fear, but now they shared a new goal: fight back. With human technology and guidance, they learned new tactics. They used stealth drones to scout the swarm's movements. They created safe zones for civilians. They even found ways to disrupt the swarm's communication, using smaller versions of Project Dawnbreaker. Meanwhile, the Drexari swarm was confused and unsettled. Their hive mind was breaking down in some areas, without their usual order. Many drones wandered aimlessly. In one sector, a swarm commander drone malfunctioned. Instead of attacking, it froze, then slowly retreated. "Is this victory?" asked Counselor Yor quietly. High Speaker Grilvok nodded slowly, for the first time in a long time. "Maybe it is." Back on Kel 3 Prime, the Council prepared to send their own fleets into battle alongside the humans. They had waited too long, but now they had a chance. Counselor Yor spoke at the assembly. "We owe the Terrans our gratitude, but more than that, we owe them our trust." She paused, looking at the gathered leaders. "The galaxy must unite, not just to survive, but to thrive." As the Council gave their approval, human diplomats worked hard to build bridges. They did not demand control. They did not seek glory. They offered partnership. Their message was simple: together, we are stronger. Leaders from many species began to speak openly about a new alliance of galaxy rebuilt not on fear, but on cooperation. The next major target was clear: the swarm's communication hub, hidden in the dense asteroid belt called the Shattered Veil. This hub was the heart of the swarm's hive mind control. Destroy it, and the entire swarm could fall apart. The Terran fleet, joined by many allied ships, planned a coordinated strike. The battle was not like the ones many expected. Instead of massive fleets crashing in explosions, this was a precise, careful operation. Human and alien pilots flew side by side. They avoided unnecessary destruction, using special non-lethal weapons that disabled drones and systems without killing. Lieutenant Reed spoke over the comms: keep pressure on their systems. Remember, disable, don't destroy. Sariakel added, we want them confused, not defeated by force. They have to learn to think differently. Inside the Shattered Veil, the strike teams landed on asteroids littered with Drexari machines. The air was thick with strange hums and pulses. The human engineers set up jammers and uploaded new codes designed to break the hive mind's hold. Slowly, the drones began to slow down, some stopping completely. One swarm commander drone looked around, confused. It turned and retreated into the dark. When the mission was complete, the fleet gathered to watch the results. The swarm's control was breaking down across many sectors. For the first time, entire systems reported swarm retreats and small victories by local forces. Admiral Rao looked at the glowing map. See that? She said softly. That's not just a victory. It's a new beginning. On Kale through Prime. The council marked the day as the spark of hope. Leaders spoke of rebuilding old friendships, learning from humanity's resilience, and facing the future together. Counselor Yora looked at the crowd. The galaxy had almost given up, she said. But humanity showed us that hope never dies when we stand united. Even the darkest night can be broken by a single spark. The stars outside gleamed brightly. The galaxy was remembering itself. In humanity's war fleet was the light that led the way. The galaxy was changing. Once, the stars were quiet, cold, filled with fear. Now, they were full of voices again. Messages of hope, plans, unity. The Drexari swarm was still out there, but it was no longer winning. Humanity's return had sparked more than just a fight. It had lit something deeper in every heart, the will to rise. Inside the TNS Horizon, Admiral Celeste Rouse stood on the bridge as dozens of allied ships filled the view. Each ship had a different shape, flag, and color. They came from many species, from worlds once forgotten. But now, they moved with a shared purpose. Status report, she said calmly. All sectors stable, replied her officer. No Drexari activity in the last 3 cycles. Resistance. Networks are holding firm. Good, Rouse said, though she knew this was not the end. The real work was just beginning. On Kale through Prime. The Galactic Council met once more, but this time, not in fear. The chamber was full. The air buzzed with conversation. For the first time in years, there was laughter. Counselor Yora stood at the front. She wore a simple robe, but her voice was strong. We gather here not to hide, but to lead. She paused, her eyes on the new symbol above the chamber. Circle of stars around a human and alien hand joined in unity. A new alliance is forming, one not built on pride or fear, but on trust, action, and the lessons we've learned from our Terran friends. Applause echoed across the room. Meanwhile, the humans were doing something unexpected. They were not building new weapons. They were building schools, hospitals, farms on planets damaged by the swarm, where the Drexari had taken life. The humans planted it again. In one colony, a young Thaleri girl watched as a Terran engineer helped her family fix their water system. She looked up and asked, "Why are you helping us? You don't even know us." The humans smiled. Because that's what people do. Even the Drexari were changing. Without their hive mind fully connected, some units stopped fighting. They became still, quiet. Scientists began to study them and discovered something surprising. The Drexari were not evil. They were not even truly alive in the way other beings were. They were built long ago by an ancient race created to protect knowledge, not destroy it. But over time, Their purpose had become twisted. When the humans learned this, they changed their approach again. Instead of destroying the remaining Drexari, they tried to communicate. Using soft signals, patient voices, and advanced AI translation tools, they began to reach a few of the drones. One day, a Drexari unit blinked its lights and responded, listening. That one word changed everything. Back in orbit, the human fleet did not stay in control. Instead, they passed authority to the new Galactic Alliance. Admiral Rouse spoke before the Council via hologram. Humanity came when the call was made. We did not come to rule. We came to help you stand. And now, you are standing. She gave a short, proud smile. It's time for the galaxy to lead itself forward with open hands, not clenched fists. The Council voted to form a new body, the Unity Accord. Its members came from every corner of space, and for the first time, every voice mattered equally. Years passed. Where once there were ruins, now stood cities. Where silence ruled, now music and learning filled the skies. Children on dozens of worlds grew up knowing peace not because there was no danger, but because they had learned how to face it together. In classrooms, teachers told stories of the dark days of the swarm, of the fear and then of the moment everything changed. They told the story of when the galaxy had lost hope until a forgotten fleet of humans returned through the stars. They told of a leader named Celeste Rao, and how she spoke not just with power, but with belief. They told of the day Varnak's Reach was retaken, and they told of the words that had become legend. Do not evacuate. Do not surrender. Prepare to fight. The swarm ends here, on a quiet moon near Earth. A new monument was built. It was not tall or grand. It was simple, just a stone platform with the flags of every species, and at its center, one phrase carved into the surface: the galaxy had given up, until humanity reminded us how to stand. Under the stars, a child looked up and asked her mother, "Do you think that humans will come again if we ever need them?" The mother smiled. They never left. They're out there, watching, helping. They just don't always wear uniforms. The child held her hand and looked at the stars, her eyes full of wonder. And somewhere, far beyond the known worlds, a Terran scout ship flew silently past a nebula, scanning for lost signals, just in case someone, somewhere, needed help again. Because that's what people do.